Science is a great competition of ideas. In society, we might think of consensus, the idea of an agreement, as a compromise. And that kind of feels like a dirty word in the political arena. That nobody really gets exactly what they want, only that small part that the majority of people can agree on. In this framework, consensus may seem kind of like a failure, but really consensus is a distillation. It's sort of like separating the wheat from the chaff. Consensus really means harvesting those best ideas that have bubbled up to the top, those ideas that work, those ideas that are undeniable. Those best ideas are self-evident in the language of the Declaration of Independence. That's a founding charter of our country written by that great champion of science and education, Thomas Jefferson, who founded the University of Virginia system. Now, Jefferson struggled with how to justify the great truths of democracy. So were those truths sacred, as was his first thought? You can see that on this draft here. He wrote the word sacred. You hold these truths to be sacred and undeniable, but he scratched them out. Self-evident, corrected Benjamin Franklin, who was helping him write this draft. Self-evident was a better way to express the source of truth. Self-evident, entitled by the laws of nature and of nature's God. So Franklin and Jefferson struggled with expressing the source of truths that are the foundation of democracy. Now, Franklin reflected the language and sensibility of the Enlightenment, the time in which they lived, and the scientific revolution that was building this new nation. Both Franklin and Jefferson struggled to form a consensus of our founding ideals that nodded both to science and religion, the fundamental tools that they used to build our democracy. It's an amazing thing to think about, and you see it right there in front of you in this remarkable draft of the Declaration of Independence. So this discussion of the relationship between science and religion is at the core of who we are as a nation. In short, this idea of consensus of ideas is the end game. That's what we are looking for in politics as well as in science. So why is consensus needed? I mean, after all, competition is a good thing. And in a democracy like ours, all voices are important, implying that one person's idea might be no more valid than somebody else's. But without consensus, without the distillation of the best ideas, progress can't happen. Ideas can't be put into action in society if there's no general agreement. And that idea of consensus, once again, is at the core of the way that our democracy was constructed. And as we will see, it often leads to conflict. But how does consensus work outside of the political arena in the realm of science, where we use the language of facts and evidence? Well, let's remember the scientific method, right? Those ideas that best explain the facts, those ideas that stand firm after passing all the tests that we can throw at them again and again and again, those ideas climb to the top as the ones that actually work. Remember, a scientific theory represents the great consensus in science. It's the actionable idea. It's the sharpest tool in the box, right? Theories are not guesses. Theories are not speculation. They're not random ideas. And in that sense, they're not controversial, although the implications of a theory may certainly be controversial. So keep that important distinction in mind. A theory is a tested idea that best explains the present, the world around us, and importantly, successfully predicts the future. We approach truth by formulating theory Remember, in the scientific method, we do a test, and as we do, we move farther down this red curve where we try and try again, and after each try, we reformulate or distill our ideas, and if they continue to pass the tests that we throw at them, we know we're approaching the truth. So that's the goal in science. Now, science, very much like art, requires specialized skills and training to perform those tests. Or in the case of an artist, you need those specialized skills to write, to paint, to sing. Scientists develop their own specialized skills to produce the tests and experiments, and based with the tools of the scientific theories that have come previously, to test and formulate new ideas. So this is it's a very artistic and creative endeavor. Now, given that, how can we trust that scientists aren't just like pulling the wool in front of our eyes and making up their results, maybe for fame or for fortune? I mean, I can tell you as a scientist, fame and fortune are pretty hard to come by in the scientific world. So let's think about the art world for just a minute. In art, success is measured by how the audience responds to the artist when they're presenting their art. So if the artistic expression rings true, then the audience is going to beg for more. You'll see their reaction, and for the artist, most importantly, they'll pay for that privilege. In science, success can be measured by two things. First, does that idea actually work? Boy, that's a test that you can't make up. You can't fake your way through. Does that combustion engine actually make the car move? Right? Does that jet engine you've produced from scientific theory, does it make the airplane fly? I mean, it either works or it doesn't. And everyone, whether you're a scientist or not, can judge the success or failure of your scientific endeavor. The second measure of success for science is, does the idea let you make predictions about the future that actually come true? Wow, is that an important test? And once again, you can't fake your way through that. The theory of gravity, for example, as we talked about before, predicted the total solar eclipse of August 2017 that I was witness to, and hopefully all you guys saw too. It predicted it down to the minute. It predicted it precisely where that path of the total eclipse would pass, and it did so decades before that event occurred. Now that's a convincing theory. The success of the best scientific theory takes generations to produce and to distill, lots of training to build on, to demonstrate and test again the veracity of a particular theory. Now, how do we arrive at that? Well, in the scientific community, there's a great competition for consensus. In science, there's a brutal arena where this plays out called the peer review process. I'm very familiar with this, and it's humbled me many, many times, where scientific results are scrutinized, ripped apart by fellow scientists. If a result that you're trying to publish can't be replicated by other scientists, well, hey, that casts great doubt on the result, and that idea will not advance. If the data you use to produce a scientific result is not reliable, and again, can't be replicated, then it's not worth much. Believe me, it can be rough to get scientific work published, and it should be. I mean, truth and knowledge are at stake. So in science, consensus is that bridge to make actionable knowledge available to society. I mean, if a scientific theory survives that brutal arena where scientists are constantly trying to knock that idea down, and if they can't do it, that means that idea is ready to be harnessed by society to use it as it sees fit. Those ideas that pass the test of peer review, of this great competition for consensus, then those ideas are accepted in a consensus in a scientific forum. Those ideas then become powerful tools that all people can rely on to come through for them. Now, if a better idea comes up that works better than the previous one, that's the idea that will be advanced. As we saw a few slides ago, it's a constant approach to the truth. We get closer and closer, always open to new ideas that better explain the world around us. And when those new ideas come along, they can't take center stage until they pass those same tests. But what if we're not sure which ideas are the best ones? What if the predictions are not so clearly obvious as like a total solar eclipse? I mean, how do we live with uncertainty in science? And these are difficult questions, but remember, science is a tool. It's a device to help us find answers and to solve problems. Later in the course, we're going to explore the concept of risk assessment to help us determine how to best apply scientific theory to decision making, how to actually use science in the public arena. Consensus in the scientific community is a contract between scientists and the general public. Those are the ideas that work. Those are the ideas that are worth your investment and worth your action. And so consensus involves a level of trust between the scientist and the public. And this is where the political arena enters the picture.